All right, so hey kids, I'm gonna be reading the book, Bedtime Stories, and this is the first story in the book, Little Red Riding Hood. All right, this is a picture at the beginning of the story. Once upon a time, in a cottage at the edge of a deep woods, lived a little girl and her mother. The little girl always wore a little red cape her grandmother had made for her, with a red hood to cover her curls. So the neighbors called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother put a loaf of crusty brown bread, some spiced meat, and a bottle of red wine into a basket and said to her, "I want you to take these goodies to your grandmother, who is sick. But be sure to go straight along the wood path and do not stop to talk or play with any strangers." Little Red Riding Hood promised to be careful. She put on her little cape and hood, took the little basket, and off she started. She loved the walk through the shady green woods where all the flowers and birds and little animals lived. But today she did not stop to play with any of her forest friends. She kept right on the path. Suddenly, from behind a big oak tree, a great gray wolf appeared. He was an evil-looking fellow, and he smiled at Little Red Riding Hood and said politely,
"Good morning, my dear. And where are you going on this fine day?"
"My grandmother is sick, and I am going to her little cottage in the woods to take her this basket for my mother. And my mother says I'm not to stop to play along the way or speak to strangers."
"Always obey your mother, my dear," said the wolf, eyeing Little Red Riding Hood hungrily. "Now, I do not want to delay you, since you have a long way to go, so good day." With a little bow, the wolf disappeared among the trees, and Little Red Riding Hood skipped along to her grandmother's house. The wicked wolf, meanwhile, had taken a shortcut through the woods, and he had reached their grandmother's cottage long before Little Red Riding Hood.
"Who is there?"
called Grandmother, who was still in bed.
"It is I, Little Red Riding Hood,"
said the wolf, trying to make his voice sound soft and sweet.
"Come in, my dear,"
said the grandmother. "Just pull the latch string." So the wolf pulled the latch string and slipped into the grandmother's cottage and ate her up in one big bite. Then he put on her nightgown and nightcap and climbed into her bed. He was just pulling the sheet up over his nose when Little Red Riding Hood rapped at the door. "Who is it?" called the wolf, trying to make his voice sweet and quavery.
"It is I, Little Red Riding Hood,"
said the little girl. "Come in, my dear, said the wolf. "Just pull the latch string." So Little Red Riding Hood went in and put her little basket down on the table. "Now come closer, my dear," said the wolf.
"Why, Granny, what big ears you have!"
cried Little Red Riding Hood, walking closer. "The better to hear you with, my dear," said the wolf.
"And Granny, what big eyes you have!"
cried Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to see you with, my dear," said the wolf.
"And Granny, what big teeth you have!"
"The better to eat you with," snapped the wolf, springing at Little Red Riding Hood. Calling for help, she ran out of the cottage and straight into the arms of a sturdy woodcutter. He stepped into the cottage, and with one blow of his axe, he killed the wicked wolf. He cut him open, and out stepped Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother, none the worse for her fright. She kissed Little Red Riding Hood warmly and thanked the warm woodcutter for saving their lives. Then, after they all had a nice lunch from the goodies in Little Red Riding Hood's basket, the woodcutter took the little girl home. There has never been another wolf seen in that forest, but Little Red Riding Hood takes no chances. She keeps right on the path and does not stop to play along the way and never speaks to strangers. That's the end of Little Red Riding Hood. I hope you kids enjoyed it. I'm probably going to be uploading more in the future. Thanks.